news this morning. A new powerful earthquake rocking Southern California overnight.
Oh my gosh.
The quake jolting residents already shaken up on July 4th, swaying chandeliers, starting fires. This game postponed.
Look at the scoreboard begin to sway back and forth.
Was this the big one they were predicting, or could there be another one? What the experts are saying could come next.
Also this morning, dorm explosions, the back-to-back blast.
We just had a massive explosion.
Smoke shooting into the air, walls collapsing, people injured. The investigation this morning, how did this happen?
Census challenge. President Trump searching for a new way to add a citizenship question after the Supreme Court blocked it. Why he says it's so important and the options he's weighing to make it happen.
Powerful storms, torrential rain slamming the plains, bringing high winds, hail, and lightning. Dangerous strikes also hitting the South. 75 million Americans in the threat zone. What to expect for the rest of the holiday weekend.
And Coco Nuts, 15-year-old tennis phenom Coco Gauff earning a slew of new fans with her amazing comeback at Wimbledon.
I don't think this is just a one-time thing.
Her prize money plans and what her coach, the same as Serena's, is saying about her winning streak.
Live from ABC News in New York, this is Good Morning America.
I suspect she's right, not a one-time thing. Good morning, everybody. We're going to get straight to our top story. The breaking news overnight, the largest earthquake in Southern California in at least 20 years.
And this was the second quake in just 2 days, a magnitude of 7.1, hitting at 8:19 p.m. local time, damaging buildings, buckling roads, setting fires, and causing several injuries. California Highway Patrol released this image here, the aftermath of a rock slide. And look at this video of the water in this swimming pool sloshing around as the ground shook.
We also have images of fires raging in residential areas and the mess made in grocery stores where food flew off the shelves. And this morning we're hearing there could be more to come. Seismologists are warning of the possibility of large aftershocks in the coming days and weeks. ABC's Marcus Moore is near the epicenter in Ridgecrest, California with the latest. Good morning to you, Marcus.
Well, Eva, good morning to you. And you know, when you were here in Ridgecrest this week, you felt those powerful aftershocks, and that has not changed. We have experienced several of them overnight. And take a look at this. Look at all of these broken bottles, the glass on the ground here. This is what last night's powerful earthquake did to this store.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Overnight, a historic earthquake rocking Southern California, and witnesses recounting the terror.
But out here in California, we're always worried about, the big one. And so there's that moment when you think, could this be the big one?
The 7.1 magnitude quake violently shaking chandeliers at this restaurant in Coachella Valley, knocking out power throughout the state, throwing water out of pools, reportedly sparking 2 fires in Ridgecrest, California.
Infrastructure fires as well as several outside fires and hazardous conditions.
To the east, this highway essentially cut off by a dangerous rock slide near Trona. And look at this trailer, swaying dangerously next to a 2-year-old child.
Get up, get up, get up, let go.
You see my son coming around the trailer and it's like, there's nothing left. I just want to get him.
The quake interrupting an LA Dodgers game.
How are they continuing to play baseball?
The Pelicans-Knicks Summer League game even called off as a result.
Look at the speakers begin to shake. Look at the scoreboard begin to sway back and forth.
Friday's quake unrelenting.
This is bad, Brian.
Leading some locals to sleep outside, believing their homes are too dangerous with aftershocks. And so why are you out here right now?
My kids don't feel safe, my wife doesn't feel safe inside, and then just to get like a little more comfortable for them.
The epicenter of Friday's quake, 11 miles from Thursday's 6.4 tremor. It was already California's strongest quake in 20 years. This morning, officials believe it was only the precursor to that massive 7.1. And back here at the East Ridge Market, the people who work here said that they had just finished cleaning up from Thursday's 6.4 earthquake when last night's 7.1 hit, and it made yet another mess. They are just hoping the worst is behind them. Eva?
Marcus, thank you. Joining us this morning is Dr. John Vidali, professor of seismology at the University of Southern California. Thank you for joining us. This area saw that 6.4 on Thursday. Now this 7.1. Was this the big one?
No, this isn't the big one the Californians worry about. The big one would be a magnitude 7.5 to 8 on the San Andreas, and that would either hit the Bay Area or Los Angeles. This one's way off to the east, and it's not as big as the big ones that we fear the most.
With this set that we've seen so far, is there a concern that there could be another bigger earthquake in this same area?
Yeah, as with any earthquake, there's a chance of something bigger, and so there's about a 5% to 10% chance of having something bigger than 7.1 in the next week or two. That's definitely a possibility and something people are concerned about.
The people who live in that Ridgecrest area, they've been feeling the aftershocks since that first one happened. How long are these aftershocks going to last?
Well, they really never end. We'll see more earthquakes even 10 or 20 years from now than they had before. They'll just get less and less frequent, but they'll be noticing them for many years.
There are a cluster of faults right in that area. Is there any concern that this could set off another fault nearby?
Yeah, the earthquakes actually are getting closer and closer to the Garlock Fault, a big fault at the north end of the Mojave Desert. And it hasn't moved in a long time. We don't understand it very well, but it's definitely a concern. If the earthquake ran from the Garlock Fault toward Los Angeles, it could shake LA pretty hard.
And that's a big reason for why that emergency declaration is still in place. Dr. John Vidali, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Oh, my pleasure.
And it's not over for people in that area, still feeling all those aftershocks. You heard Marcus talking about them. Some of them are pretty strong. I was just there yesterday, and we got caught in one of those aftershocks, and you can see as it was happening. This was a 5.4. What you don't hear in that video as we play it is the screaming of my producers in the background. We felt many aftershocks. This was just the strongest one we've felt, and I think to be surrounded by things, you see me running off.
You're running to get out of the building?
To get out of the building.
Which is the instruction.
Well, in that situation, because there's so much stuff that could fall and hit you, that's the reason we ran out. Because the safest place to be, there was no place to really kind of duck and have cover inside, which is the first thing they tell people to do. But outside, there's nothing that's going to fall on you, and that's where we went.
You look remarkably calm. You're unflappable.
I was not calm.
But it is a reminder for everybody, though, living in earthquake country in California, to be prepared, because the next one can definitely come.
You never know.
Absolutely. Eva, thank you. We do want to turn now to those back-to-back blasts at the Reno campus of the University of Nevada. The explosions causing serious damage to 2 dorm buildings. ABC's Marcy Gonzalez is in Reno with the very latest. Marcy, good morning.
Whit, good morning. Crews have been out here going floor by floor, making sure there's no one still trapped inside, saying it is just a precaution because incredibly they believe everyone made it out without serious injuries.
We just had a massive explosion.
There was just like this big boom and debris started flying everywhere.
Back-to-back explosions blasting through this dorm at the University of Nevada Reno campus.
We heard like the big explosion, and that's when like all the debris went up into the air.
Firefighters responding to the first smaller explosion, watching as a second larger one rocked this building. The blasts originating in the basement in what officials call a mechanical failure, sending smoke billowing into the air.
Oh my gosh! You just see a plume of smoke, and then it just spreads.
Part of the 7-story building destroyed.
The building is compromised right now. We have several locations where we have the side of the walling, exterior wall has collapsed.
First responders rushing to find anyone possibly trapped inside. As many as 10 people treated for minor injuries. Officials saying 2 maintenance workers checking the boiler room escaped with just moments to spare.
They said they got out of there. They didn't smell any gas at all, and then we had the mass explosion.
Police grateful this morning, saying the impact could have been much more devastating.
We are confident that and lucky that on today, with a light day coming after a holiday, that we really didn't have anybody in those halls.
Now, 2 people were treated in a hospital. They've already been released. And we learned overnight that 2 firefighters responding to the scene were also hurt. Their injuries are considered minor. And this morning, investigators are still trying to figure out what caused the mechanical failure that triggered these explosions. Eva.
All right, Marcy, very lucky everyone is okay this morning. Well, now to President Trump's push to get a citizenship question on the census, despite a Supreme Court ruling. ABC's Rachel Scott has more on the new tactic Trump is taking.
We're working on a lot of things, including an executive order.
President Trump weighing all options to get that controversial citizenship question added to the 2020 census.
So we can start the printing now and maybe do an addendum after we get a positive decision.
The path forward still unclear. The Justice Department lawyers told a federal judge they are still looking into new avenues to include the question, but didn't provide any new reasoning. The administration scrambling to push that effort forward, despite the Supreme Court's decision to initially block the question from being added.
Well, you need it for many reasons. Number one, you need it for Congress. You need it for Congress, for districting. You need it for appropriations. Citizenship has been on that thing most of the time for many, many years.
But a question about citizenship hasn't been asked on the census in nearly 70 years. And citizenship is not used to determine districting. That is based on total population. The Census Bureau estimates millions of people, mostly minorities, may not answer that question or just skip the census altogether. Those unaccounted responses could affect federal dollars and how many congressional seats each state gets. The president departed the White House for a weekend in Bedminster, but first told reporters those deportation raids he postponed will start soon.
We're removing people that have come in, all of these people over the years that have come in illegally. We are removing them and bringing them back to their country.
Last month, the president put a pause on that plan for mass deportation roundups, giving Congress 2 weeks to find a solution. But the president says time is now up. He is moving forward.
Well, I don't call them raids. I say they came in illegally and we're bringing them out legally. They'll be starting fairly soon.
And President Trump also defended conditions at migrant detention facilities after reports of dangerous overcrowding. Democratic lawmakers called those conditions horrific, but President Trump said many of those facilities are clean and well kept. He also said Border Patrol agents did not train to be nurses, doctors, or janitors. Whit?
Rachel Scott for us, thank you. Meantime, the Democrats competing to run against President Trump in the 2020 election are courting votes from the biggest labor union in the country, the National Education Association. ABC's Stephanie Ramos is in Washington with that story. Stephanie, good morning.
Whit, good morning. 10 Democratic presidential candidates hit the campaign trail in Houston at that education forum Friday. A majority of the candidates, including frontrunners like Senator Elizabeth Warren and former Vice President Joe Biden, agreeing on one thing, that if they become president, their Secretary of Education would be a teacher. That got massive applause and cheers. Julian Castro also receiving a solid applause when he spoke about strengthening health insurance, sharing his own personal story of his immigrant grandmother who worked all her life and in her later years became dependent on Medicare.
And Stephanie, Senator Kamala Harris from California was also at that event. She's been gaining momentum since confronting Joe Biden at the previous debate on school busing. So far, Stephanie, that appears to be paying off.
Yes, it does. Senator Kamala Harris, the last candidate to take the stage, promising to close the teacher pay gap. And Harris raising nearly $12 million this quarter, according to her campaign. A lot of it coming in just the last few days. $2 million pouring in 24 hours after last week's debate. Now, Biden, he is insisting Harris took his position on busing out of context. Biden continues to defend his civil rights record and his position that busing should have been decided at the local level rather than by the state. For one, because he says it was not supported by the African-American community in the state of Delaware, which he represented as senator. Whit.
Yep, and Harris getting that boost in funding and in the polls as well. Stephanie Ramos in Washington for us. Thank you. Dan, over to you.
Whit, Stephanie, thank you. A lot to talk about this morning, so let's dive in with ABC News Chief Political Analyst Matthew Dow joining us from Texas. Matthew, good morning. So we've now had more than a week to mull Kamala Harris's big moment at the debate, taking on Joe Biden. In that time, we've seen her surge in the polls and in fundraising, as Whit and Stephanie were just mentioning. We've also seen Biden pushing back on the stump and in interviews. So just stepping back here, what's your view at this point about the state of this race?
Well, I think the debates last week, especially the second debate where Kamala Harris was with Joe Biden, were our equivalent of a political earthquake. And I think we're still feeling the aftershocks of that earthquake. The presumed frontrunners in this race, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, showed they had incredible vulnerability in this race. And so I think that debate showed how important debates are, but how much they can reset what we think the race is. And so I think the next debate, which is coming up the end of this month, and the ABC debate in September, I think you'll see more and more avenues where candidates change the dynamic of this race. And Joe Biden revealed a fault line that he has is, does he fit the 21st century Democratic Party? And I think that's still an open question.
Let's look back to President Trump and this question of whether he can put the citizenship question on the census. A two-part question here. One, is he likely to succeed if he goes the route of an executive order? And two, given that this story can be a little hard for some people to follow, remind us of what the stakes are here.
Sure. I mean, in my view, the Commerce Department and the White House is a little bit like Wile E. Coyote. They come up with this brilliant plan, which they seem to do quite a bit over the course of the thing, and then it blows up in their face. And in this case, it blew up in their face in the judiciary, where the courts decided, whoa, you can't do that unless you come up with a justifiable reason that we agree with in this. I mean, the stakes are huge. The stakes are billions and billions of dollars, which is allocated not based on citizenship, but based on population. Two is that there's a huge concern, and there's evidence of this, that if you ask a citizenship question, you're less likely to get a response from many people around the country, especially in those states with large minorities. And three, it does affect the census, it does affect redistricting, which allocates the number of seats by congressional district, which in the end affects the Electoral College. So the stakes are huge.
We could be feeling the effects of whatever the outcome is here for many, many years. Matthew Dow, we appreciate your analysis. As always, on a Saturday morning, thank you. And Whit, over to you.
Dan, we are learning more about that deadly helicopter crash in the Bahamas. Billionaire Chris Klein and his daughter were among the 7 people killed. Aviation investigators working as we're seeing new images of the chopper underwater. ABC's Zachary Quiche has more.
This morning, an investigation is underway after 7 Americans died in a 4th of July helicopter crash. According to authorities, the chopper headed to Fort Lauderdale went down just minutes after takeoff, but wasn't reported for more than 12 hours. Among the dead, West Virginia billionaire Chris Klein, coined the King of Coal. Klein worked early on in the mines, then founded one of the nation's top coal companies. Multiple agencies, including the NTSB and Leonardo, the manufacturer of the aircraft, are joining in on the investigation. The crash site, Grand Key, is in the Bahamas. Found there, buried in 16 feet of water, its tail and rotors non-existent.
Because the wreckage was found in shallow water, mishap investigators should have a pretty good idea of what went wrong.
Klein's wealth allowed him to be influential in the world of politics. He donated $1 million to President Trump's 2017 inauguration. Overnight, President Trump tweeting, "My deepest sympathies go out to the family and friends of great businessman and energy expert Chris Klein, his wonderful daughter Cameron." 3 of the girls on board with him included his daughter Cameron and her friends, all recent grads from LSU. Calling the accident tragic, the school saying, "Cameron, Jillian, and Brittany were all May 2019 graduates and had such bright futures ahead of them. Our deepest sympathies go out to the family and friends of everyone affected. This is a sad day for all of us." The university and so many others still trying to process exactly what happened. The group was reportedly headed to Florida because of a medical emergency. Guys?
Very sad. Zachary, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Let's check in now with Rob Marciano. Some severe weather to talk about this morning, Rob.
Yeah, a lot of it, even heat and humidity kind of helping spawn some of those storms. Yesterday, we had over 90 damaging severe weather reports, including 7 reports of tornadoes across 3 states. We had 3-inch diameter winds gusting over 70 miles an hour. Here's some video out of Sturgis, South Dakota, where they had a severe thunderstorm roll through, just ripping through that area. 65-plus mile-per-hour winds and hail coming down as well, and we had some tree damage because of it. Also in Parma, Ohio, we had some severe flooding there with heavy rain, a lot of moisture with these storms rolling across the East Coast, and we have a flood watch in effect this morning for Kansas. This front's going to kind of drape across the northern tier, including the Great Lakes as we go through the afternoon, and that will spawn more in the way of severe thunderstorms across the central U.S. and across the Northeast, and we'll talk more about that in the next half hour. In the meantime, it's time now for a look at your local forecast.
I'm ABC 7 Steve Rudin in for Alex Liggett on this Saturday morning. As we move through the morning hours, it's going to stay warm and hazy and very sticky. Temperatures quickly rebound through the middle 80s. 11 p.m. could be looking at a few showers off toward the west of us. Now later on this afternoon, going to the pool, stay weather.